So, as you may be aware, there's obviously going to be a change in the current season plan. We announced last year that we were going to try and run the regional season from March. We've had to shift the season, and we're going to do so by shifting it back to a date that's after our World Finals event. Obviously, the same team runs regionals as is running the World Finals, so we have a bit of a compromise to make. We're going to announce the date shortly, so while I can't give you a definitive date tonight, I think it's probably reasonable to expect that the regional finals won't happen until the beginning of June at the earliest, which I think is probably good news for most people, in the sense that it's going to give you the most time possible to prepare your teams. Realistically, I'd like to think we can get them done before the summer holidays and get people in a position to be moving on to a national finals in September. So to do that, obviously, we'll look at a submission deadline for project elements towards the end of May at the earliest. It may be that this becomes later than that. I'd like to think it wouldn't be, but again, this is kind of a rolling news story. So while there is no definite news at the moment, the news is that we're going to postpone the season from the original March dates. So like I say, hopefully good news for most of you. The idea is then to broadcast the events before the summer holidays. And my plan very much is for us to be able to showcase what the best of the best in the UK have done this season, while then broadcasting our events before the summer holidays, so everyone's got a bit of motivation to go away with. If you're in a position where you either don't have access to your own facilities, or you're going to struggle to get a car produced with a neighbour school or a partner school, we have a set of manufacturing centres, and they are schools, colleges around the UK who are happy to help and happy to provide a remote service, essentially. These are people who are doing this as a sort of a service to F1 in schools and to you guys. They're there to help, and although they're going to be in their own sort of particular situations with restrictions and whatnot, it's definitely worth asking the question. They're on our website, which if you go to the f1inschools.co.uk website, you'll find a section there for manufacturing centres. There's contact details there for everybody who's in charge of a manufacturing centre. They'll be the best place to advise on availability, their timelines, their costs, which are normally just to cover their own costs. It's not a profit-making exercise for them. So do get in touch with them if there's any difficulties with making your own cars. In terms of what's complete, this is for a team entering a regional finals this year virtually. Your project elements are the one manufactured car. That's just a single car made to the technical regulations of whichever class that you choose to enter. If you're completely new to all this and you're still going, wow, what's happening? You've got 3 classes to choose from. One of the questions which actually got submitted was, can you give us a bit more info about the classes? There is a great video on YouTube which we put together last year that just breaks down what each class is and what the differences are. Essentially, you have to manufacture one car in accordance with those rules. You then to enter one e-portfolio, or at least one copy of an e-portfolio for your class. Now, entry class have to just do a 5-page portfolio. That's 5 pages of basically design work leading up to a final solution. The dev class actually do 5 2-page portfolios, 1 on design work and 1 on the enterprise side of things. So that's your team marketing, your graphic design, your branding, any of your sponsorship and marketing exercises the team has done to try and raise its profile. So 2 5-page folios. With the pro class, we ask for the same as dev, but bumped up to 10 pages. The format can be however the team wants to present it. I mean, normally, a landscape for a physical event, a landscape A3 is perfect. So that sort of size is ideal really for a portfolio in any of the classes. You can produce them A4. If A3 was a struggle and getting that amount of content together is an issue, then A4 is fine, but obviously A3 gives you the most space to sort of flex. And then the real difference this year, I guess, is the verbal presentation, which is going to be presented as a video. That presents with it a number of challenges, but also a few options which haven't always been the case. So you've got the chance now to go back and edit your presentation. So far from being rabbits in the headlights, your team can now perfect and preen their delivery. They can edit themselves, they can add transitions, they can add effects. It's all very much now a case of how far do you want to go with it. The time limit is still the same. So it's still a 10-minute presentation for national finals, but just a 5-minute presentation for regionals. So again, it's pretty much how the team want to approach that task. The last part of the assessment this year is going to be for Dev and Pro class only. So entry class don't need to worry about this. is a virtual pit display. The pit display, if you've not done this before, is a sort of team base. It's a kind of showroom for the team. So it's your home for the day, and it's where you sort of collect your marketing gear. It's where you can put sample models, prototypes, any sort of marketing collateral the team's built up. That's going to be presented this year, ideally as a video based around a CAD file. So sort of an animated video using some pictures from CAD, even a screen share of a model being rotated around. To help the teams with that, we've put a CAD template on our website, which is a standard show booth dimensioned template. And that's there to help teams design to the right size. So if you download the virtual pit display template, you can use the CAD model, you can design a CAD file for that, or you can go down the route of designing it in 2D. We've put out a template as well, which is to do that as a 2D design. You could do it on the computer, so you could use Illustrator, Photoshop, even PowerPoint if you wanted to do a sort of basic graphic design, or if you really wanted to, you could do it by hand and sketch onto it and scan it in that way. That can either be presented, as I say, first option as a video, ideally, so you can put a bit of voiceover onto it, or as a PDF if you want to go with the 2D portfolio route. So the pit display, a little bit different this year, because obviously it's an assessed judged item with the team there in person chatting to the judges. So again, it's kind of how far you want to go with the pit display this year. And I've already seen a couple of cracking examples of teams who've got onto the CAD side of things already, and just sending them through saying, is this kind of right? It looks great. Right, question time live. So I'm going to go through some questions now, which were submitted to me in the sign-up form, which most of you have signed to come onto the call tonight. So these are questions submitted by you guys. If there's any questions in addition to this, or if anyone's kind of sat watching going, all right, that makes sense, but what about the next bit? Please feel free to just share those in the chat, and I will try and keep an eye on the chat. He says, I've actually lost the chat window at the moment, but I will get that back. If you've got any more questions, post them in chat, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. When we've gone through this list of questions which are submitted in advance, that's when I'll sort of open out the floor to the rest of you guys if you want to chip in with an actual question or something that's just occurred to you this evening. So bear with me a bit longer. I'm gonna drone on for a short while just to answer your questions, and then it'll be over to you folks. So questions in no particular order. One that came in was just about the classes. Where can you find a bit more information on the classes? I think the best place to turn in this case is to our YouTube channel. If you go to the YouTube channel, which is F1 in Schools UK, there we've got a playlist which is all of the sort of essential information, key competition areas. Within that you've got a section of videos. One of them is competition classes explained. This is your best place to go, really. Breaks all the classes down, tells you what each one's about, assessment objectives, and also, crucially, the car design. So what goes into making a car for each of the classes. Next question was, we want to register, but we're not sure if we're going to be up to scratch this year. Worried about the competition, basically. What should we do? Should we wait a year? Should we wait for events to become physical? I think my advice in this situation has always been the same, which is just enter, get in, get involved, and get going with it. The worst thing to do is to hold off and hold off and hold off and never really know where to start. One of the best quotes that came out of last year was from the chap who was the teacher of our current world champions, a team from England. And he said he entered the competition in the beginning with absolutely no interest of winning it, and he meant it. And the whole point was just to get the kids experience and to put them in an awkward situation. So he said it wasn't at all about the winning to begin with. That's what made it fun, because they weren't going in with any pressure. There was no expectation to come home with a trophy. It was getting involved, seeing what we can do, and basically just run what you've brung, essentially. Literally go in with no expectations of winning anything, but try it. I think for me that is the way to go with it. And I would strongly suggest that even though this year sounds and looks probably like a more challenging year than ever to get involved, actually it presents a few opportunities and things that you might not have to go to the extent of doing for a usual season with physical events. Next question that came in, back one. Yeah, we're not in school half term, so is it still worth entering this year? Similar answer to before, really, but again, in terms of of getting work made. Don't worry about this half term. Like I said at the beginning, we're looking to extend this season in terms of submission deadlines. So you've probably got now until the end of May, start of June. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we get some news in the coming months that schools are going to be back in at a point in time when it's safe to do so. And your teams will get access to your workshop critically, which is kind of the last step of the project. Realistically, what you can do in the meantime is almost everything else. Things like portfolios, design work, all of the sort of individual tasks that get put into an e-portfolio or even into a video can be recorded from home. They can be, done on desks. They can be done in and around the house. They can be done on Zoom calls between the team to discuss and decide. Even fundraisers to a point can be done remotely. So I would say, yeah, absolutely. There's no reason not to enter this year. I think if anything, set the expectation level lower again this year and just say, look, let's just get cracking. Let's have a go. Let's have a go this year, and we'll be in the hat for next year anyway. We'll know what we're dealing with, and just do what you can. So yeah, speaking of money, somebody said, do we need to raise sponsorship? There is no rule that says you have to raise sponsorship. Let's just make that clear. There is no expectation that everybody rocks up and says, yeah, we've got $4,000. Completely not the case. You only need to raise sponsorship in as much as if you cannot afford to come to an event without it. I think a question that's been leveled at F1 in schools in the past is it expensive to enter? And the brutal answer is no, it's not. It's as expensive as you want to make it. To get to a regional final, you've got to factor in the cost of manufacturing a small car from a model block, which is about £9 off the top of my head for the block itself, plus the consumables of printing off a portfolio, putting together a display. A development and professional class team need to pay an entry fee of £75, which if you split it is £12.50 a head. So when you're talking about basic fundraising, that's pretty much the extent of it. On top of that, then sponsorship becomes a sort of judging criteria, because if a team can market themselves, attract sponsors, bring in sponsorship funds, that's when they then start to accumulate more points in certain aspects of the competition. But in terms of it being, a requirement to enter, absolutely not. If you can't get hold of sponsors this year, but you can still make a car, submit an e-portfolio, record a video, brilliant. Get along. That's what we want to see. In terms of how's a difficult one, because how relates very much down to sort of your individual situation, and I guess this year specifically, the situation that businesses are in now. We've seen ways that funds can be raised during lockdown. Major Tom being a cracking example. There are ways if you sort of use a bit of creativity to work out how to raise funds in a time like this. Look around at what other people are doing to raise money. Even if it's putting on sponsored events, if it's challenging yourself to do something daft, climbing Everest on your stairs, for example. And seeing if you can raise a few pennies that way. Now, Neil Humphreys, at this point, Neil, you just put your hand up, which is very polite of you. What I'm going to see if I can do is give you a chance to speak. So let's have a look. Neil, I'm going to ask you to start your video. There you are.
You okay?
Hello, mate. I can hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Yes, go for it.
Ozzy, I've got a quick question with regards to sponsorship.
Yeah.
In the past, we always go in for the entry team, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Can sponsorship be classed as getting an outside agency or company to just help towards the design and the graphics for the car, or does it have to be actually raising money of such?
It's a brilliant question, and you're absolutely right. You've nailed it. Sponsorship doesn't have to be money. It's effectively support. So you can call sponsorship anything. It can be sponsorship in kind. It can be mentoring. It can be access to facilities. No, money is just one way that a sponsor can provide support.
So is it a way of adding a bit more realism to the project for the kids as well, as much as anything else then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because if you look around in the real world, F1 teams, while they've got all these names on their shirts, they're not all cash sponsors. A lot of them provide equipment or services or facilities or logistics. They're not necessarily giving hard cash to those teams.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
all about a support network. So yeah, if you can encourage the team, or if you can, show the team that a supporter of any sort is effectively a sponsor.
So a service of kinds is
Yeah,
classed as a sponsor. Yeah.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, if they bring something to the team, they are supporting the team.
Yeah.
And if, as long as there's, so that the key thing with sponsorship, I guess, is identifying the return on investment. And again, investment doesn't need to be financial. It can be time. It can be man hours. So what's the sponsor getting back from the team for their investment in time? Are they getting publicity out of it? Are they getting access to the students in terms of being future customers or future workforce?
Yeah.
Are they getting something back from their involvement? Is it logo exposure on your car at a regional final, for example? It's something as simple as that.
That's great. That answers my question. Thanks very much.
Brill, fab, excellent, right. Well, thanks for letting us do the hand up thing as well. That worked a treat. You can put your hand down now, Neil. That's fine. I used to be a teacher, by the way. That wasn't an I've always wanted to say it moment. Yeah, so a few more questions on sponsorship. Actually, this was these again were submitted. Was can the school step in and provide a sponsor? Yeah, they can, absolutely. Nobody's judging anybody on how they get their funds to a point, as long as it's above board. But yeah, a school can absolutely help support a team. I mean, many do, but I think that's one of those things where you could just roll your eyes and go, well, God, the grammar schools and independent schools are always going to do better. Not the case, because a team who's gone out, like Neil was suggesting, who's gone out and gained supporters, sponsors, mentors, industrial contacts, they are going to be a far better prepared team when it comes to an event to speak to judges about their process, their program, and how they've got to where they are, than a team who rock up and go, well, we got a grand from the headmaster because we're great. That isn't going to set them in good stead. So yeah, a school can stump up, absolutely, and there's no problem with that whatsoever. But whatever you do, don't see that as a moment to go, well, it's all about the richest school wins. It's very much about the students, this competition, and that's, I think, a misconception that certainly I had as a teacher before even knowing really about F1 in schools, was that it was all about money, but it's not, and that's become really clear through doing the job I do now, which is that the students, and not the teachers, the students that put the effort in away from school are the ones that rise to the top in the competitions, because they're the ones who clearly have the best understanding of the project themselves, their business, as it were, and how it all links in, how it all relates in the real world. How much is needed? So how much is needed in terms of sponsorship? How much would be needed in a virtual year, and how much would be needed in a physical competition? So that's more of a kind of financial, a kind of a benchmark. What should we look to get? There is no number. There is no magic number, because you might be traveling to a regional final that's 5 minutes away from school, so you could walk, so you don't need to hire a bus. You might be getting in a hire bus that goes 30 miles to a regional final, so you need to factor in some transport costs. Again, because there's not a figure that's, you get 10 points for getting £1,000 of sponsorship. It's how much do you need? I think that's the best way to look at it, is work out what your costs are to get to the competition and just go backwards from there. What we find quite often is that teams will raise sponsorship money and sponsorship packages to a point where they've got more than they actually need. And they end up then with a sort of a surplus that they can invest in other things. So we've had plenty of stories of teams buying and donating 3D printers to their department because they've managed to get 400 quid from a sponsor, in which they only needed 50 for printing some stuff. So, that 350 quid got put into a 3D printer, which they use, but the D&T department also gets access to. I think you could probably argue that this year is the year, if any, that budgets can be much lower, because obviously the travelling aspect of regional finals isn't there. I think this is more of a year of creativity, and using the tools at your disposal, both free online tools and sort of tools around the home, as it were, because that's going to be the difference in getting to a regional final in 2021, and perhaps coming up short. So yeah, a bit of a non-answer to that question, really, but I think you just have to assess where you are as a team. What do we need? How much does a starter kit cost to make the car? What's our ambition for the pit display? Do we want to make it out of something fancy, or are we happy just putting it together using bits from the classroom, and go from there? But yeah, I think going to a sponsor with an idea of how much you're asking for, or crucially, what you're asking for, is really important. Something that's quite often asked in Twilight sessions when we do them in person is how do you get money? And a bit like the conversation with Neil was saying, don't just ask for money, ask for stuff, because companies that buy and sell stuff don't want to give you money, but they would quite easily give you some of the stuff that they sell. A good example is for example a t-shirt printing company. Going to them and saying, we're a team doing F1 in schools and we need £200 for a set of printed t-shirts. That costs them £200. But if you go to a t-shirt printing company and say, we're a team doing F1 in schools, can we have some printed t-shirts, please? It might cost them £25 cost to provide them to your team. So it's a case of strategically looking at companies that you can target that have got a service or a product or a specialism that you need, and trying to basically tick off a list of sponsors that are strategic sponsors, not just cash in the bank, anybody will do type sponsors. And it's good in that way, because you can really clearly show a return on investment to those sort of sponsors, because you're promoting their service at the regional finals, wearing their t-shirts, getting their bus to the regional, using their bearings in your car. It's a very easy link for you to be able to promote and let them promote back as well for the whole return of investment story. Next question was about Autodesk software, and specifically about CFD. So for those that aren't familiar with that, it's computational fluid dynamics. So Autodesk software is free to anybody with a school email address. Any educator at all can get Autodesk software. If you go to the F1 in Schools website, or indeed go to Autodesk's website, you can register for a free education account, and from there you can download pretty much the entire suite of Autodesk stuff that you'd ever need. So Fusion 360 is their sort of industry standard 3D modeling package, which has got a whole ton of stuff in it. And they've just released a new version of what used to be called Flow Design, which was basically a virtual wind tunnel. Really cool bit of kit. So you'd do your 3D design in Autodesk Fusion 360, used to be Inventor back in the day. And then you drop the model into Flow Design, and Flow Design would give you a coefficient of drag, and it'd show you a kind of nice visual trace around the car and all the surfaces to give you an idea of where it was causing drag and friction. That's been discontinued because they've released a new piece of software called CFD Ultimate. So CFD Ultimate is it's a lot more capable, I think, than Flow Design. There's more to it than just a wind tunnel, but for that purpose, it is perfect. So there's some tutorials available through Autodesk for how to use that specifically for F1 in schools. So again, it's a free download. You head to Autodesk. If you do so through the F1 in Schools website, it's a little bit easier to find your way. And that's the best advice, really. Get on there. In terms of learning how to use the software, it's top level stuff, but it's suitable for schools. What I would say is that there are stacks and stacks of tutorials out on YouTube, partly produced by Autodesk themselves, partly produced by keen F1 in Schools designers, teachers, competitors who've put videos up there for general consumption. So get involved with YouTube, go through the tutorials, learn your way, and you'll find pretty quickly that you can be competent enough to get a car out of Fusion 360. Car manufacturing, yeah, I sort of mentioned it earlier on. Manufacturing centres, we have, I think, seven now, I think, around the country, who are usually competitors or schools who have competed for a long time, who are super comfortable with manufacturing cars and are happy to provide it now as a service for other teams who are less fortunate or less, able to just jump to a machine. They're listed on our website, and for a nominal fee, usually just to cover their own costs, they'll happily make a car for your team based on a bit of CAD data which is ready to go. They don't offer a sort of, well, to be fair, they do offer a bit of a consultancy service. They prefer not to, because obviously it's time out of their teaching day, but they'll help you get files right to the point where they're ready to cut. They can often help with 3D printing as well, and some can help with wind tunnel testing or a bit of track time as well if you wanted to head down in person when that is allowed and legal in this world. But in terms of manufacturing, if you're in any way in doubt that you can make a car, just get in touch with one of our make centres. They don't need to necessarily be local to you either. I know that sounds a bit random, but if you get in touch with one, just to pull one out of thin air, there's a chap up in the northeast who actually works at Nissan. So we have a centre at Nissan where they have an education centre. They manufacture cars regularly for schools all around the country. They'll be getting orders from Devon, from East Anglia, from Scotland, from the Northeast, from the Northwest, and they just deal with that, and they pretty much deal on a mail basis. They can take photos of the design, they can take videos of the process happening so that your students aren't missing out. So yeah, there's loads of options, I think, for cars being manufactured off-site. Now, somebody asked a question about the virtual pit display, which was, can it be supplemented by physical models, mini models? This is in specific relation, I think, to this year's assessment and obviously virtual events. So our ideal scenario is that the pit display is a CAD model. That's our kind of goal with it, to see pits visualized as a fully functioning 3D CAD model that you can manipulate on screen, talk your way around as if you were there in person with the judges, and you were saying, if you look in this bit of the display, you can see our profiles here. This bit of the display shows you this. If you look down into the top there's a screen that shows you this and that. That would be the ideal. If you want to provide some supplementary models and photograph them, put them into a small portfolio, then absolutely go for it. I mean, they can be part of a video in as much as an animation of a pit display on CAD can be. So I would just say, yeah, if you want to do a virtual pit on CAD, but also put some little prototype models in as well, include them in the video. Definitely. I think the more the merrier. So that was the question list. That was where we got to. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen again, and I'm going to go back to hands up time. So if anyone's got a question, you can either do it through your screen, set your hand up in real life, or you can some great thumbnails. Or you can ping us a message in the chat. I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat now, because I know a lot of you have been putting questions in there. Can't hear anything. I can't hear anything. Yeah, that's fine. I'll go down a bit. So in a physical race, what is used to stop the models? Good question. So we have an aptly named deceleration system, which is essentially a specific way. It's a custom manufactured slower downer tool, which is made from some very soft bristles. So the car essentially enters a sort of narrowing corridor of soft bristles coming in from either side, which just create a bit of drag. It's affectionately known as the card crusher. In certain situations, it can lead to the end of a car, but we tried and tested many methods. And back in the good old days, we used to use towels for stopping the cars. But yeah, the deceleration system is something which is detailed in dimension terms, I think, in the back of one of the booklets, and I believe it's in the competition regulations document, which is all available on the website. So yeah, the cars are stopped by brushes. It's worth saying that a team can make their own deceleration system if they wanted to. So we're not against teams turning up with their own systems and having them on the track. Now, let's have a quick look around. Don't see anybody putting their hand up just yet. So I'll just keep going down the chat questions. Okie dokie. Right, so this is from Aero. Hello, Aero. So we're unsure of the pit display points. We have a 3D CAD model of our display. I'm planning on rendering our boards and images onto this and then making a 3D CAD video, touring the display, etc. Sounds great so far. Will we lose points for not having a real display here? No, you won't. That's what I was trying to say before. That we don't want you to try and have to make a pit display physically this year. That's part of the whole point of making the pit display virtual. Obviously, we realise that most of you are not able to access school. So in terms of physically making a pit display, that's only something to do if you absolutely want to make something physically and model it. I would say, you can max the scorecard out with a virtual model for this year. So no, you won't drop points from not making something in real life. We want to see you really stretch yourselves on CAD and come up with the most amazing, the most creative pit designs possible. Okay, what sort of ages are the students who take part? Good question. It's part of the Twilight video originally, but you can be excused for missing it. The competition ranges from 11 to 19. So we start with 11-year-olds at year 7. And the entry class is your first port of call, which is 11 to 14 only. So entry class is designed just to be for the younger kids, at which point they move into development class, which is from 11 to 19. The reason it's from 11 is because we don't want to stop anybody entering, into development class straight away if they're ambitious enough and ready to go for it. And it goes all the way to 19 so that you can be competing all the way up to the end of leaving school. Lincoln College rather. And exactly the same for Pro Class, 11 to 19. So the whole competition spans 11 to 19. Now, typically at an event, you'd find the entry class teams are year 7, 8, and some 9. It tends to be the younger end, which is perfect. It's exactly how we want it to be. Development class then sort of steps in at probably sort of year 9 up to year 11 in most cases. We have had a couple of development class teams who jump in college. So they'll start year 12 as a dev class team and go into year 13 as a pro class team. So they sort of start from year 12. But typically, again, your pro class teams are more sort of year 10 and above. It's completely up to you, though. You know, as a teacher in charge of your team or as a team entering, you enter with whatever stage you feel comfortable. As long as you're eligible for that entry class, then go for it. Okie dokie, next question down. So it's difficult to explain the method of stopping cars at the end of the track. It's a good point, and it's a point to mention really more than anything else. Yes, stopping the cars is so often overlooked by the teams in the pursuit of speed and lightness. People go the Colin Chapman route of thinking lightweight is everything. There has to be some thought about the strength and the durability of the car, because it has to race 4 times minimum at a regional final. So if after race 1 the car has obliterated itself at the end, then your next 3 races are going to be a write-off. So yes, it's a really, really good point to make. When you're designing a car, make sure that it can stop as well as it can go. And that's just thinking about your sort of frontal contact areas and perhaps just the strength of the components that are sort of most at risk, I guess, from snapping off. And it's always the usual contenders. It's front wings, it's rear wings. Occasionally it's wheels if they're sort of held on very sort of thinly by narrow bearings or whatnot. But just have a think about it, because your car's going to have to stop in a very short space of time every race. Okay, next question then. So yeah, about CAD software and how to get hold of this. So Autodesk apparently have a list which some schools are not on. Yeah, that is a huge frustration. I'm afraid that isn't something that I can do anything about. All I would suggest is if you just send me an email separately, if this isn't an issue, ping me an email to the same email that I sent you the link to this Zoom call on. And we'll try and look into it with our contact from Autodesk, because if the school's not on Autodesk list, then you're rightly saying you're not accepted onto their education list for free software, but you should be, I think. So yeah, ping us an email, we'll see what we can do. Let's go down a couple of good comments for Les there at Nissan. A lot of love for Les. Okay. So with the dates for submission deadlines and the race being postponed, is the registration date also being postponed? Registration date is always a little bit more flexible, because ultimately I just need to know who we're dealing with before events happen. But realistically, the sooner you can register, the sooner that you're on the mailing list. I had a couple of teachers email me today actually who are not on the mailing list because they've not registered the teams, but they're fully intending to compete. What that means is they're not on the mailing list for any updates for teachers who are in the hat. We normally say that it's registration deadline is before Christmas for a physical event. 12th of Feb this year, I think it is best to stick to. The thing to say there is that there's no, at the point at which you register your school, you're simply saying to me, look, we want to compete, we're in the hat, keep us informed. So I think even if you're considering it, get registered. The worst thing that can happen is that you pull out in a couple of months' time and you say, look, Mark, we're just not going to make it. After I've tried to twist your arm and offer you every solution possible. But if you're not in the hat, you won't be getting necessarily all the updated information for people who are competing. So yeah, always the same response from me on that is get registered. Make sure you're in the hat. Right, hands up question time. Has anyone got a question? You can post it in the chat. Feel free to stick it in that way, or you can pop your questions to me as Neil did before. I am viewing gallery view and I can't see many of you at all, so I'm guessing that most of you still got your screens off. If you do want to put your screen on, give us a wave and ask us a question. I can see you, Simon, but I'm guessing you're just chilling out watching. Oh, hello there. Now then, I'm going to unmute you. Right, go for it. Your name's just going up as Jay Bashford. Is it Julia by any chance? Not Julia, is it?
It's Jenny.
Jenny, I was going to say Jenny. I was going to guess with Jenny. Jenny, go for it.
No, no question as such. Just that we're sort of dipping our toe in the water with STEM, and I lead up on STEM, and it's all gone a bit wrong with COVID and getting sorted. So
yeah,
I've got two colleagues in the meeting, Anthony Johnson and Satnam Jolly, and we're looking at how we can launch this at school. I think our first port of call will be to look properly at your website, look at the YouTube videos, and then start getting groups of students interested in this and set something up somehow remotely at the moment.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, like you say, the first port of call is the videos on YouTube, which we've been putting together since lockdown, really. I mean, I think you probably already got your eye on a bunch of students, or at least a cohort that you're probably thinking this is right for them. They're the ones to go to and just put the idea out and see what response you get. What tends to happen is you'll get a whole load of hands at first, and as time goes by, those hands will sort of, some will vote with their feet and decide that they're not committed enough, or it's not really for them. But you'll probably get to a point where you've got a cluster of kids who are still up for it, and I think that's where you just go, right, let's just go for it. Let's just enter a team, two teams this year and see how far we can get with it. I think the first, are they within the entry class age bracket, 11 to 14?
It was me that asked about the ages, actually.
Right, okay.
We're in 11 to 18 school.
Yeah.
And I mean, my colleague and myself, Satnam, are scientists, so we're very keen to build up the interest in the physics and engineering side. And then my colleague Anthony is an engineer by trade.
Okay.
And he's very, very passionate about this, and we'll look at it from the DT aspect.
Okay.
So, I mean, he's just privately messaged me and said, can we meet soon to discuss the next step? So it's really good. So thank you.
Oh, fab. Oh, you're welcome. No, I mean, I think you're right. I think a joined up approach is always going to be the best, because I always say this to teachers, don't be the one in charge of this. And don't any of you think that you're taking on a scheme of work, because this should all be about the kids. You literally facilitate, you join it up with me, and you go, right, it's your project. This is for you. You manage it. And your job really is just to sort of join the dots, open the rooms, provide the buses, fill the forms in. But the project should come from them. You shouldn't be teaching it. So I think, yeah, having some buy-in from DT would be great. And even with DT, if they look at it and go, our manufacturing kit's not quite up to spec, maybe that's where they can get help from manufacturing centre. There's absolutely no stigma associated with that. It's there. It's a service that many schools use. And like I've said it a few times, if there's anything at any point that you're not sure about, just come back to us. We're not here to judge you. We're here to help you. So if you need a bit of advice off me, and you just want the truth, then give us a call, send us an email. But yeah, I said it at the start. I think if you're even debating it, get registered, and then you've almost put the pressure on yourself to just get something going, even if it is just a bit of a poll to see if the kids are interested. And if you find you get 6, 12 back, stick a team in, and go, that's it. We'll do an entry class team. If you get nearer the time and it's not happening, there's no harm done. And you can just say to us, look, we did our best. It's maybe not going to happen this year, but we'll try again next year. Sort of just get started with it, get cracking, have some fun. I think it's the sort of thing now that as much as people are looking for resources, I think you're looking for kind of stuff to pep people's enthusiasm a bit, aren't you? With everything just slowing down at home.
I think so, and I think also it's even more important, particularly in the area we work in, for the kids to see a point to what they're studying.
Yeah. And
give them something exciting, which I think this is.
Definitely.
That's the logic behind it.
Definitely, Jenny. No, you're spot on. You're spot on. I think that's the key with it as a STEM club, because that's another thing we sort of go around going, oh yeah, do this as a STEM club, because STEM clubs are great, but where does an activity always lead? Is it just building a bridge for building a bridge's sake and turning up next time and building a robot from a kit of parts, and then you're back to step one again? Whereas if you take something like this on, every week you've got a new focus that's leading towards this competition, which is your ultimate showdown. And it's nice in the way that we give you the deadlines, because you're not having to sort of say to the kids, we need to finish this by this point. Why, miss? Because I'm going to get bored of it by then. It's, you know, the race is the race, and that's it. There's no kind of getting out of the deadline. So, yeah, go for it. But like I said, Jenny, if you've anything at all, just come back to us at HQ. We're here to help you along in your journey.
Thanks.
That's all right, no problem. Right, now I'll pop back on gallery view. Simon, still just chilling out there in your baseball hat watching. Have you any questions, mate? Are you good?
No, mine was all about the registration, but apart from that, I'm pretty good. I was going to say, I guess there's a lot of newbies, but I think we've met each other a couple of times, Mark. And I think I've done it, 3 years now, and we're in the same position, never done it, new. Being an F1 fan, that was it. And then it's both what you expect and not what you expect, but it always is great fun. So, and it's definitely not onerous. So it's one of those, if you've got enough uptake from your boys and girls that want to do it, then just give it a bash. The second year definitely was a lot more confident the second than the first. But just to echo what you were saying. So
good man. He's not being paid to say this, by the way, folks. That's that's natural. No, I agree. I've always said as well, it's not. I was terrified about it as a teacher. I remember looking at it going, not with my lot, not a chance. But I think as soon as you get a group involved in it, even if it's just an entry class, you know, your 5-page folio and a handmade car, as soon as the rest of the kids in school start seeing that, wow, you were at that event, you raced on that track, and it's like, well, let me do it next year. And it builds its own kind of head of steam, doesn't it? And you start being able to step back away from, you know, leading it and being the one at the front, and you can just, hopefully the idea is that it starts to run itself and your kids become your resource. You know, your year of students who did it last year become this year's mentors and vice versa, and it all, it's I know it sounds great on paper, but I think you just got to get stuck in, haven't you, and give it a go. Right, anyone out there in the ether got any questions at this point? I'm just going to pick on somebody as well, just in the meantime, see if they're actually watching or not. Right, there we are. If anyone's got any more questions, please do feel free to jump in, post it in the chat, or pop your video on and just put your hand up like Jenny did. I think it's probably just worth mentioning again, if anyone's not watched our very lengthy Twilight video, which I put together before Christmas, then please go and have a look at that, because there's tons and tons of information in there, which I've tried not to recover again tonight. The point being that everyone tonight has probably had a look at that at some point. But if you've not seen it, go and have a look. There's bags of info in there and links to other stuff as well. Now then, in the bottom corner, I've just brought in Mr. Andrew Denford. I'm going to ask you to unmute at this point. Never afraid of a celebrity visit at F1 in Schools. We've got the
I was trying to keep
the chief himself, just to say hello to you all.
Hello.
Over to you, Andrew.
Great to see so many on the call. It's fantastic. Hi, everybody. I was just listening in the background just while I was working flat out here, trying to just see what was going on. I've learned quite a bit myself, to be quite honest. So well done, Mark. It's good. And I was just looking at all these new templates that you've done on the primary project from the Formula One team. So really, another edition. So yeah, very informative, I think. I think the issues on how to stock cars has become quite an interesting conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those. I think when you're new to it, especially, you fixate on the speed of the car, and then turn it with your bunch of enthusiastic year 7s and see the thing go after race 1. So it's a really good point, actually. I think it was one of the team members from, was it Aero who mentioned it? Great call. It was one of the team members from Aero just mentioned it's a really good shout for a new team, I think, to keep your heads up at an event, to not see your car get shattered at the finish line. So thank you for pointing that one out, folks. But no, it's just nice to have you in, Andrew. I think it's nice for everyone to see the face of F1 in Schools.
Thank you. Yeah, that's why I keep up the profile.
Yeah. Right then, folks. I'm just keeping an eye on chat. There's no more chat coming in at the moment, so you've got a couple more minutes if you want to jump in. But no, I think we're probably close to wrap up time. I'm just going to share my screen back again. Let's have a look. There we go. Righty. Quiz time. I think we did okay there. Oh, one more. What we got? Oh, we got someone in the chat. Let's have a look. Oh, good stuff. So do you know if there'll be some flexibility in terms of the submission of a car because of the question as to whether manufacturers will be available? So I'm guessing that is submission date of a car. To a point, there probably won't be, because obviously the cars need to be with us in time to race. But what we will do is we will make sure that the submission deadlines are at a point where we think you've had a reasonable chance to get things made. I mean, yeah, it's a difficult one, folks. If we set a deadline because we need to race the cars, then obviously we need the cars to race them. But we're certainly not going to insist on March submissions anymore. So I think you can rest safe in the knowledge that you've got until at least the end of May to get cars made, boxed up, and sent to us at F1 in Schools. That's probably your working timeline now. So hopefully that gives you enough time to get things done. Back to just the screen share then. So in terms of next steps, I thought I'd just sort of summarize where I think, you know, people want to probably go from tonight. Obviously, like I just mentioned before, watching the Twilight video on YouTube, if you haven't already seen it, it's a lengthy watch, but it is informative. Get yourself a cup of tea or a flask and a sleeping bag. First things first, get your team registered at F1 in Schools. If you do that, then you're on my mailing list and you will be involved in all the mail outs in terms of submission dates changing. Yes, we'll publicize things through the website and social media too, but you'll be in the hot seat and you'll be the first person to hear any changes in the schedule, the submission deadlines, anything at all. So I would encourage, if you fancy getting involved this year, just get stuck in, go for it, and it'll be the push you probably need to get that initiative going round in your students. Speaking of which, put the responsibility on them, because it's ultimately a thing for them to do. So please don't see it, like I said to Jenny, as something that you're taking on as another part of your teaching load. Goodness knows you do enough anyway. So take this on as a privilege for them, and put them in the position of, look, you guys have got to come up with the answers here. This is your opportunity to shine and be part of something amazing. Use our YouTube channel to sort of push that message home, because there's one thing we do really well to put teachers off is the glitzy YouTube stuff, World Finals and all the rest of it. But actually for your students, it's probably the one thing that's going to make them go bleary-eyed and go, wow, get me in there. That's what I want. So World Finals videos on YouTube are a great little hook. And you know, there's nothing forced about that. That's what they're getting involved with eventually. So yeah, stress to them that it's their project, they manage it, they decide what happens and when. You facilitate it, you do good teaching, basically. You don't lead from the front and talk forever. That's not what this is all about. It's making them feel like they're in charge of their own learning. Again, come to me if you need anything. It's one of the main reasons I'm here. I'll do my very best to try and get you guys to an event, because it's for you, it's for the kids, and it's for the, you know, it's for the greater good. So don't think that we're sat here in an ivory tower judging you guys and going, you're not good enough. It's all about getting people to an event and enjoying it. So yeah, try just to use it as a beacon of hope. We briefly touched on it when Jenny was on. You know, this could be something to really lift your students. And if you're sort of starting to be, you know, aware of students looking a bit more, or being a bit more quiet and fading backwards a bit, then perhaps use this as a hook to get them back. Get them thinking, get them creative, get them fighting for something that's tangible and real and has I'm going to say has an end point, knowing full well that we're about to reconfirm dates, but you know what I mean. You know, something real that they're getting involved with that's an external competition. So it could be that this is something to really brighten up January, February, March, and really bring your students back in if they're starting to feel like times are really bleak for them. Get hold of free software. It's free. It's there. Obviously, if you've got issues with Autodesk not recognizing your school, please just send me an email separately and I'll do my best to look into this for you. But if you can, get yourselves registered, download Fusion 360 and CFD Ultimate, get stuck into the tutorials, get your students to do the same. They can access the software in the same way you can, so they can download it onto home computers as long as they've got a computer with a reasonable bit of memory. The real benefit actually of Fusion 360 is that it's mostly cloud-based. So you don't have to download an enormous package of software like you used to do with 3D CAD. It's pretty much an instant install, and it works almost like a web browser. So the updates are all done automatically through the cloud. Work is saved to the Autodesk cloud. It's a pretty revolutionary way of CAD software working. So get that onto your computers and get your students to do that too. Same with CFD Ultimate. Contact your manufacturing centres. check availability. I'd do that sooner rather than later, because obviously there's going to become a squeeze towards probably April, May, where lots of schools are starting to think, right, I really need to do this now. And there may well already be a queue. So get in touch with the manufacturing centre if you think you're going to need one to help you make a car. Try and work out who's going to be the best one for you. It may not be the nearest one geographically, because ultimately it's probably not going to be, you know, within scope to go and visit them this year. But find out which ones are there, which ones are available to help, and what their costs are going to be. Like I said, they should be no more than £75 all in. Some of them, and I know this, do the whole service as a favour, and they won't charge you a penny. But again, just check with them to find out what the ballpark is. Ultimately, just get cracking, have fun with it. This is something that's a case of why not. You know, if you're looking for content to engage your students with, then it's here, it's ready to go. So just get going with it and have some fun. So without further ado, if there are no more questions, I'm going to bid you all farewell and have a good evening. I won't disappear immediately, because if anyone else has got any questions and just wants to hang about, feel free to do that. But yeah, if you've heard all you need to hear and you're happy to crack on, or you think I've answered all your questions, then thank you very much for joining us. It's been great to see some familiar faces. It's been fantastic seeing people who I haven't seen before, and thanks for joining in wherever you've come from, teachers, teams, Mr. Andrew Denford himself. So thanks very much, folks. A good evening to the most of you, and I'll stick about for the next few minutes.
Thank you very much, Mark. Much appreciated.
Cheers, Simon. Thanks, mate.
Hi, Mark.
Hello,
name's
mate.
Anthony. I sent you the email about the software.
Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look. I'm just struggling to see you, but I can hear you. So go on, go for it. You sent me an email about the software. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been having problems. I've emailed Autodesk. I even had my technicians contact Autodesk to try and put us on the list.
Okay.
And students are saying, sir, I still can't access it. So we're really struggling with this at the moment. So
Right.
I don't need help on your side.
Have you just sent me an email now? Did you say?
Yeah, just.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me look into it from our side. I don't know. I mean, I've probably got a different contact at Autodesk from the one that you'd have got through the help desk.
Yes.
It's a problem I've heard a couple of times, but it's a frustrating one, isn't it? Oh, well, out of interest, is there any particular reason that they might not have put your school on the list?
Well, the thing is, our school changed their name in September.
Right.
So I don't know if that could be like a reason, because we went from Great Borough Academy to Fortis Academy. So I think that might be the only reason, to be honest with you.
So in terms of your school's status or situation, there's nothing out of the ordinary to it.
It's just a name change. Just the name, yeah.
Oh,
just
it's got to, that must be a simple thing for them to sort then. I think if you've had no luck with it at your end, let me just give them a prod from our end, and hopefully it's a simple thing for somebody just to change. And I think with Autodesk being a partner of ours, it'll be in their interest to make sure that they're not excluding an F1 in school.
Yeah, because I did take part in Formula 1 in schools in 2012. Yeah. I think at the time I was given SolidWorks.
Yeah, there's been various packages over the years that have been associated with us. I mean, it's been Autodesk since for the whole time I've been with F1 in schools, which is the last 5 years. But I mean, really, it's a case of what the organisations provide, and Autodesk have just got a massive support package for F1 in schools. You know, the bundles of software, the it's tutorials are mega,
definitely. So. I like to have a little play myself, to be honest with you.
Yeah, snap. Yeah, if only we had time. Let me have a look at it. I'll follow it up for you now that I've got your email, and I'll ping it to, because we literally this week I've just been given a new contact. I was struggling to get in touch with who had been our contact. They've graduated some fancy job title now. So let me follow it up with our new contact who I've just got, and I'll see if we can kick off that way. But yeah, I can't see there being an issue.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Mark.
Not a problem, mate. Absolute pleasure.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Cheers, buddy. You too. Bye-bye. Okay, if there's anyone still in and listening, then I think we are going to sign out, unless anyone wants to jump in at the last second. And thanks to everybody who's messaged in the chat. Obviously, really appreciate your thanks. Cheers, mate. Thumbs up back at you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate all the help.
Oh, you're very welcome, mate. It's what I'm here for. Thanks again.
We're starting, so I'm sure I'll get in touch soon with any issues.
Yeah, just be in touch. I'm always here.
Nice one. Thanks, Mark.
Nice one, buddy. Have a good evening.
You too.
Right. Well, that'll be it, folks. Have a great evening. I'll hope to see all of you soon and stay safe.